Welcome to Leicester Fan TV. It's Monday night. It means it's Fan Zone Show with me, Phil. We're live every Monday, 7:30, streaming with all the latest Leicester City fan news, views, gossip, transfer news. We would like to be talking about some transfer news. We've got stuff we can gossip about tonight. Tom will be joining me very, very shortly. We want your views, your comments. What do you want to talk about? The comings in, the goings out, what's not happening? The lads are back in training. Let us know.
Welcome to Leicester Fan TV. Are you ready for the show? Thanks to our sponsors, ADT Taxis, Everards, Pukka Pies, Pink Car Leasing, Leicester Riders, Hollogram, The Fox's Arms, Peter's Pizzeria, Hope Against Cancer, and Newby Co estate agents. We want your views, we want your comments, so join us live. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yes, as I say, if you're watching this on playback on YouTube or Facebook, come join us live every Monday at 7:30. But get your views in, get your comments in as ever. I can get as many on screen as possible in the next 28 minutes. Don't forget you can follow us at Leicester Fan TV wherever you are. Now let's get a little bit less of me chatting and a little bit more of this is what's this about, your comments. Matty Bond, oh, good evening. How are you? Hope you're well. Hope you are doing well. Good evening to Nick Moore as well. Keith says, hope you don't get too mardy today, like Jamie did. All I asked is, where's Jack? Sadly, I'd like to go on record and thank Jack for all his hard work for Leicester Fan TV. Keith, Jack decided he wanted to go and do something else. It's as simple as that. Sorry about that, but we did love what Jack did. It's a shame he's gone. It was his choice, not ours. Rumours, here we go. Rumours. Andy says, rumours, Dennis Praet to Forest. Please don't. Andy, I'm absolutely with you on that. And I know Tom is going to click in very, very shortly and give us some views on that. I'd have Dennis Praet playing for us in the first team. I think he's first team material. I liked everything I saw about him. Very strange that he's not part. Very strange how he left to go to Torino last summer. Very strange. Jono, good evening there. Hope you're well. Carl says, please tell. Yeah, I hope Dennis Praet doesn't go there. I think a bad move from us. I'd have him in there. Karen, Auntie Karen, hope you're well. Stan says, what transfer news? There's a few snippets around. There are a few snippets. We were a little bit more linked today with Christian Eriksen. Apparently, we have put an offer in. It is there on the table, and he's weighing it up. I guess an advantage for him to come to Leicester would be, obviously, the Casper connection, and he probably would play a lot of first-team action, which is exactly what he'd want leading up to the World Cup in Qatar. Curtis says, good evening. I'm happy we're getting some of the main players' contracts down and sorted. I'd like to see new faces. We need some new players. Patrick is the bringer of doom and gloom, but Patrick, I am hearing what you're saying. He says, Project Refresh going well. Brendan said it. Brendan said it was going to be a rebuild. Can't see it at the moment. Adam says the only player he'd let go to Forest is Vestergaard. Come on, Vestergaard might come good for us, Adam, or have you absolutely given up for it? Karen says, Dennis Praet can go anywhere, just not Forest. I know, it was just, for me, it'd be stupidity. It really would. I'd have him at Leicester. What has gone on? Nobody's asked, nobody's said what has gone on with Dennis Praet. Patrick's taking it a bit farther, maybe saying Rodgers will need sacking before Praet plays for us. It must be clear they must have fell out, you would think. Something's happened. Because Dennis Praet I think he played about 44 games for us, scored a couple of goals, always looked decent. Again, one of those solid players. I mean, we've had Sumeri in there, and I thought Dennis Praet worked well. He was a sort of a central holding defensive midfielder. I thought he was decent. Simon said he'd rather keep Praet, rather have Filbert Fox in the squad than certain others in there. Matty says if Praet goes to Forest, that will bite us up the RC's class. For me, I totally agree, Matty. I think it's stupidity in there. Hitesh says, Rodgers and Praet had a touchline Barney. Can't remember the game. He never started after that. Something has definitely happened. Brad, hope you're well, Brad. How's it all going from emergency glazing? If you need your windows doing, speak to that man. I wouldn't sell any player to Forest, says Brad. I wouldn't. And there were some links of Hamza going there as well. Karen says, if anyone sells anyone to Forest, they need to be shown the door. Dennis Praet would give some bite in midfield. I agree with that. Listen, let's get Tom in. He's waiting patiently. Let's add him in. Tom, good evening to you.
Evening. Evening, mate. You're right. Evening, everyone.
Hope you're well. Yeah, you're all right there. Your parts up there, obviously not driving. Clearly not driving. Not in your unless you're in your hands-free Tesla yet. Not yet. Andy says Dennis Praet would give us some bite in midfield. Tom, I would have Dennis Praet back at Leicester. I'd have him in the starting 11.
Mate, how a player of Dennis Praet's quality and ability doesn't get picked in the 25-man squad is beyond me. Something's gone off. We don't know what, or if he's just out of favour, or generally there is a rumour that he was homesick and his family was homesick and he wanted to go back to Italy where he'd played most of his football. I think that's a very easy answer to give him on should say a player's homesick. I generally think something's gone off. Or it is a case of he's told, Rodgers, I want to play every week. I deserve to be playing every week. And Rodgers gone, well, you're not going to get that here. I've got my players in Tillemans and Madison, who are my two starting attacking midfielders, and you're going to have to take a place on the bench and, you'll get the European games like you did the season before. And he's gone, well, no, I don't want that. And then obviously, as Rodgers already said, if a player doesn't want to be here, then he'll help them out the door. And I generally think it's probably a bit of that down to that, though. He said to Rodgers, well, he ain't going to play, and then I'll go somewhere and play week in, week out. But for me, Dennis Praet should be in and around the first team squad week in, week out, because I can't think of a game there he's actually gone and let us down when he's played. I think he's been another Albrighton for me. He's another 7, 8 out of 10 most games. He does the basics very well, and that's tracking his man and tackling, winning the ball. And he's a box-to-box midfielder. He's completely different to anyone we've got in the squad for me in that midfield area.
I mean, Tom, when Dennis Praet went to Torino, he was quite open in some of the Italian press, saying that he didn't really know why he'd ended up out there. He thought he said, and I'm paraphrasing him here, but he said he felt like he'd had a good couple of seasons at Leicester. He felt like the fans had took to him and he was settled in. He was enjoying life and was expecting another season in the Premier League. Now, that's paraphrasing what he said, but it was very much along those lines. He didn't really know when he was asked by the Italian press why he was back in Italy.
That says it all to me, then, mate, doesn't it, really? It says to me that Rodgers made his mind up that he wasn't going to play enough games. And as he said, if players aren't happy, then he's happy to push them out the door or give them the opportunity to go somewhere else and play. But for me, he should be starting some of these games, especially last season. 58 games, that's the most we've played in a very long time. And with the amount of injuries we've had, we should have had someone like Dennis Praet in the squad over Hamza Chowdhury, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, Hamza does well, but I'd rather have Praet over Hamza every day of the week.
I mean, Tom, Curtis is there saying Praet and Wilf in midfield. I think that's a bit defensive when we go like that. I thought Dennis Praet was a nice blend of enough defence, but he looked like he got a football brain on him, Dennis Praet, where if he needed to lay off a simple ball, he could do it. But if he needed to make a slightly longer pass, I thought he could. I thought he was he reminded me a bit more of the old, when we used to have like an attacking midfielder, a defensive midfielder. I think Wilf's very defensive, so is Mendy. And then we sort of like, we've got defensive midfielders and then we've got attacking midfielders. Whereas Dennis Praet, I think, is somewhere in between that. And perhaps that's why he doesn't work out for us, Tom.
He reminds me of a Lennon. Can
Yes.
do the dirty work. Could do the dirty work, can break the play up, but then also he can get his foot on the ball and he can play. And he knew where the passes needed to go. He got the 5-yard, did he say? But he's also got the vision for the long ball. And we saw it a few times. I think Villa away, he set up Vardy for one of the goals in a 4-1 win with the ball over the top. He saw Vardy and he played the ball. It's one of those. It's a strange situation, especially last year with the injuries. But look, I think if it's time for him to go, then we move him on. And I think some of this, the rebuild is being halted by what's going on with Tillemans at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Andy says here managers shouldn't have personal grudges with players. The club comes first. I think sometimes these things just happen. Andy, Craig says he's better than Soumare. I would definitely agree with Craig on that in there. I mean, Tom, just before we end on Dennis Praet, I'd have him back at the club. It'd be almost like making a signing. I believe he is, of course, still a Leicester player. I don't know was he there for training, first day of training today?
I haven't seen any photos of him. I presume he would have been back in with the rest of the squad if he's a Leicester player. I think everyone else was backing. So either the club don't want to put a photo of him out there because they're not sure what's happening this year. Yeah, it was a strange one. Going back to Somery, I mean, the kid's not had the greatest start to his career at Leicester. Had a few good games. He had a few bad games. We didn't see him after the game against Tottenham away. Well, I actually thought he had not a bad game really in the middle of the park away at Tottenham. His engine was there. He just needs to speed up his passing, if I was honest. And the speed up the play, he moves the ball around the pitch, and that's something he needs to learn. But he won't learn without playing games. I generally think there's a good player in there. He's just got to get used to how quick this league is, and that's the difference between the French league and the Premier League, is how quick you will get closed down, how quickly you have to move the ball. You don't have time to get the ball in the middle of the park and look up. You need to know where you're going. And this season was, well, Brendan said at the beginning last year that Daka, you weren't to the best of Daka or Somery to the beginning of this season. Now, everyone keeps talking about us moving players on. I think there's probably players in the squad who deserve to move on quicker than Somery does at the moment.
Let's get a few comments in, Tom, and then I think we will talk about Yuri. Patrick says Arsenal buying all sorts, so can't see Yuri going there, which I think we'll touch on with Tom shortly, about how many then there. Joanna saying thanks for last Monday. It was great. Thanks, Joanna, for coming. We did the live Q&A with Matty Elliott. She says, do you know how much was raised? I think it was about 200 quid, which goes to Hope Against Cancer. So thanks for everybody who got there. Loads of stuff was given away, freebies as well, which was great. Andy says, do you feel we'll have to sell players before we can sign new players? Rob is saying he's fearing a bit of a scary season ahead. Craig says, why can't either of them swallow their pride and bury the hatchet? Talking about Rodgers and Dennis Praet. Could happen, Craig. I've seen it happen before where something can happen. And Andrew again says here, the rebuild won't happen unless we sell Tielemans. Tom, listen, Brendan's put himself under all this fan pressure. You and me are stood here talking about a rebuild because Brendan Rodgers himself talked about it. And he sort of set himself up for a fall here, hasn't he, Tom? We were at that Forest game and he came out and said it after. And has said it several times since. It can't be all hinging on can we sell Yuri Tielemans for probably only going to get 30, 35 million. And the rumours today, Tom, are that Yuri's probably or possibly going to sign a one-year extension with a £60 million buyout clause. And I could see him having a decent Qatar World Cup in November, December and being a prime fodder for somebody still in either the Champions League or Europa League in January. And I could imagine him going in January at this rate, which is no good for anybody. Certainly not for us. It might be all right for him.
I mean, look, I think there's a little bit of the Tielemans has to go before we can buy a silly amount of players. I obviously do feel the club hasn't got the money. People think we've got the money to go and splash at the moment. We've always been a club that sells to buy. We sold Chilwell, we buy a better player. We sold Maguire, we go and buy some players. It's the way Leicester is. They sell one player a season and they try and use some of that funds to buy. Last year, they probably made a hash of it and they brought the wrong players at the wrong time. And obviously, let's not put it in context, but the club never even planned to be playing 58 games last season without, because of the way the European League went and having to go into the conference and playing extra games. So in some way, the club, the signings weren't what the club needed, as in they needed players who could play from the start, not wait a season. What Brendan's probably brought Daka and Somery in. He even said it was going to take 2 seasons for them to, or a season to bed in before they started. But if you look at it now in another scenario, this rebuild, in some ways, it feels like the rebuild was just the thing to take the pressure off the players after that defeat now. It wasn't ever going to happen. It was just, I'll come out and say, look, we need new players. There'll be a rebuild.
Well, now, Andrew says exactly that. Did Rodgers come out to say we're going to do the big refresh to save his job? Was it political almost? Was it gaming?
I don't think to save his job. I generally think he just said it to take the pressure off the players and just say, well, maybe we've had an absolute shocker here, lads. Let's just say that I'm going to go out and say we're going to have a few new players and we need them. That's it. And then we'll get through the rest of the season. And time next year comes, depending where we're at, we'll be all right. And I generally think people panicking. There's a massive difference this season. We haven't got no European football. The players are going to be a lot fresher than they've ever been. There's no excuse of tiredness for me this season. They can't need, we're playing too many games in too many periods. It's Saturday. They're having 7 days off bar if we get one midweek game in a couple in the season. So there's no excuses this year to say there's any tiredness or fatigue. That I think they've got to do is to trim that squad down because the squad now is too big for just Premiership football. Without European football, the squad is way too big. And before they can bring anyone in, as Brendan said, they've got to get it off. And for me, Brendan's probably looking to get rid of 4 to 5 players off that wage bill to probably bring in only two, maybe 3 max, I think. I don't think you'll see 6 players or 5 players come through the door. I think it will generally only be 2 or 3 players if they do come in.
I mean, Tom, there's a big bit of me that says if we stick with the same full squad that we had last year, and like you say, without Europe to take the strain on us, that full squad could do really quite well in the Premier League and have a run in one of the cups. So I guess that could be something that you're onto in there. Let's get a couple of comments in there. Mark says to rebuild or refresh, we need to move players on. We pay our deadwood too much and no one will sign them. It's going to be a long summer. No excuses, says John, for time to practice set pieces. Yeah, there's plenty of time for that. And he says, do we have the money for players underground extension in there, which is an interesting one. Rob says it's like we've all forgotten the FA Cup win after one average season. And in the end, Rob, we did finish 8th, and a European third-tier semi-final. It really wasn't a bad season in my books. Jonathan says here, and this is an interesting one, which we sort of forget, but Jonathan says you need a big squad, as there is five subs starting from next season for every game, which for me, Tom, plays into the big clubs' hands where they've got this extra depth of level. It just is a big advantage to them.
Oh, massively, mate. If you could, if you look at some of the smaller clubs out there or lesser clubs who haven't got the kind of money, your teams like your Fulhams, the teams that come up this season, your Forest, when you look at the bench and go, we've got 3-4 really good players, and you look at Man United and their bench will be 3 great subs. Then we'll have Ronaldo or Cavani will be on the bench, and suddenly you've got another 2-3 players that are good game changers, mate, and that's going to be the difference this year when Liverpool can have rest 5 players, their best players, and then 20 minutes to go, if it's not going to plan, well, we'll now bring on Salah, we'll now bring on Jota, we'll now bring on your new players and signings, mate. It's going to be a massive advantage for the bigger clubs. I don't care what anyone says, and that's one way I didn't want to see it. 3 subs is plenty for me in a football match. Before long, it's going to be like American football, and you take your first team off and put your defence on. It's just going to get silly for me.
Yeah, I agree. Joanna says there we've got a decent squad, but we keep buying players that don't use and then they move on. Need to buy proven quality players. I think I'd add to what Joanna says there. I do hear what she's saying. I think I would add to that, Tom. For me, I feel like we've not signed in the last 3 transfer windows, January this year, last summer and last January. I don't feel we've signed anybody who really is cemented into that first team, apart from maybe if we were to sign Lookman, certainly gets in and around that first team quite regularly. But got to sign some players, Tom, who are first team players. Haven't we?
But you want first team players, but for me,
yes.
This doesn't go back to 3 transfer. This go back to when we won the league. We ballsed up that transfer window. For me, we had the opportunity to go and trap any player near enough from bar the top 6 club, but below that, and drag them into our team. Any good players from Southampton, any good players from the likes of are you fighting Villa? Good players from Villa and stuff like that, and drag them into the first team and involve, but they've got proven experience, and for me, we blew it by Samari, Musa, players who had never even been in the first team. I said at the time, Winston Reid at West Ham would have been a great signing for the club at the time. I know he had a lot of injuries after that, but at the time he was having a great, season for West Ham. And with Champions League football, you probably couldn't have gone and got him, and we had the money to do it. It's the same this year now. We need to stop looking at players abroad all the time. And yes, you get more value for your money in some ways going abroad, but they're not proven. And we're finding that now with Daka. We're finding that with Sumeri. These players can't just come into the Premier League and play their football because they're not used to the high tempo. The standards 10 times better to anywhere they've played before. So for me, proving it a lot in the Premier League is massive for us. And look, when they're talking about James Ward-Prowse, a price tag of 75 million put on him. If he's worth 75 million, fair play. But then James Maddison, Tielemans, they've been playing better than he has in over the recent years. So they've got to have price tags of 75 million on top. And look, it's always difficult to pay that kind of money. We haven't got it, so we've got to be clever with our money. Going back to Lookman, be a great signing, but can't see it happening until we've got the players and we need him the positions. Centre half and a right, and for me, probably another midfielder is the main priorities first before they'll splash that 14 million on Lookman. I think that's the way the club are looking at it.
But Tom, you just said another midfielder. Like if Yuri doesn't go and
Obviously, if Yuri doesn't leave, that is, mate.
yes,
That's it. If he doesn't leave, then yes, the midfield. But if not, then for me, then yeah, get the centre half in what you need, or two centre halves, because it's probably the weak spot in the team now is centre half position. And he obviously, for me, Brendan Rodgers doesn't trust Sayuncu because he hasn't played since Tottenham away when he came out and slated him from that second goal where he missed the tackle and should have gone through his man. Then for me, if you don't trust that much, then you have to move Cags out. Talks of Daniel Amati obviously going to Turkey at the moment, the rumours are. So
yeah, which is strange. Again, I thought he was all right as a squad. There's some players who you think, yeah, we need somebody in the squad player, and Amati is that sort of player for me, Tom. But somebody said before as well, too many players on too much money. I would hazard a guess Amati isn't on big money.
Can't imagine it. I mean, you have to laugh when you're looking at the likes of Hamza Chowdhury earning 80 grand a week or 60 grand a week. He barely plays, but he's paying 80 grand a week for Hamza Chowdhury. There's players out there who probably deserve more. And when you hear Kieran Juby-Hall was on like 22,000 a week or so before he got his new contract, I mean, that's scary. But someone of Hamza's abilities getting paid what, twice as much, 3 times as much.
But Tom, that's part of the problem. I mean, again, we're going on what people say people are on and accounts and that. But, you know, this is why it's hard to move somebody on. Hamza Chowdhury, I like him. I hope he works out at Leicester. But the reality is I think he played 8 games last season, Hamza, and he's on that much money now. West Brom or Forest aren't going to be able to afford him if we tried to sell him or even loan him. He's playing for his hometown club. Hamza's quite happy here, and I don't blame him. Heck, sign me up on 80 grand a week or 60 grand a week to play for Leicester. You know, I mean, I just want to go back to a comment here from Jono that I did pop on screen. John Towers. He says 4 things for this season. He says if Yuri stays and starts ticking, great. He says if Madders continues the good form, great. If good luck with injuries, great. I mean, we weren't the only club to suffer with injuries last year, John. But and he says 4, defend a few corners and we'll be top 6. You know, I do think there is a lot to be positive about if the squad stays the same. My fear at the moment, Tom, is are we doing a Leicester and leaving, you know, are we waiting for this to happen, waiting for that to happen, and then it'll be a scramble around and with 14 seconds to go, we won't sign the right player?
No, because I reckon the club will be quite straight with Yuri and say if we've not had a bid in by a certain period of time, then you won't believe in the football club. I generally feel that now. I don't think the club will leave themselves open to deadline day to go, oh yeah, all right, Arsenal now put a bid in of 35 mil, we'll accept it, and like then start scrapping around to find a midfielder like we did last year with Vestergaard because we lost for Farnar. I generally don't think the club will do that again this year. I think there'll be a cut-off point to when Yuri can leave the football club, or they've got a plan in place to know if he does leave, who will become. I used to play with Rob, don't I?
I used to play football with
Rob. He is now. But yeah, you know, I generally think the club will have a plan and be honest with Yuri and say, if we don't have something in place by a certain point, mate, you won't be leaving. And that's the end of it. I can't see them leaving themselves exposed in the middle of the park.
A lot of comments I've just put on there is about we need another striker. Let's play 2 up top. Just Brendan doesn't do that. I think we all, even I have to get used to that. He doesn't have a plan B. I'm already expecting that next season I need a bleep button. I need a buzzer button for every time I'm about to say where was plan B or bring another striker on in there because I'll need to like shut myself up. Again, Jono, a few people have put about Ericsson in. There is rumours today again that we have tabled a bid for Ericsson. It's on the table, but it's on there along with 3 or 4 other clubs. I think it's Ericsson's choice where he goes because he's obviously a free buy. It's his wages, and where does he think he'll be looking, Tom, to try and find a club where he thinks he can play every game leading up to the Qatar World Cup, won't he? I assume
he ain't come to Leicester. Not a chance, mate. I'd love him to come, and I think it'd be a quality signing. But with the way we got our midfield at the moment, who does he dislodge? You know, that's the thing about it. And you got another midfielder. We just said about that. Unless Tielemans goes, you don't need another midfielder for me. So can't see that happening. And if I'm Ericsson and you're looking around, you've got people who are offering European football in Manchester United. And he might be luring and go back to Brentford, seeing that they were the club who came in and gave him the opportunity when his career was in the balance, because obviously over in Italy they can't play with a defib or heart monitor or anything like that. So he was basically kicked out of Italy from playing, in Brentford gave him the chance, so he might be lured to Brentford and give him another season there.
Patrick's
put an interesting point there.
Well,
that's the one that I was going to say.
I just seen that. Now, I don't know, Patrick. Now, I know you quite well, Patrick, because you comment a lot. If that's true, that is a bit of a joke. Is that true, Tom? I didn't know that fact.
Yes.
So we've signed a head of We've signed a head of recruitment who can't join until this transfer window shuts.
Yeah, basically we let our head of recruitment leave to go to Atalanta, I think it was. And then
I keep hitting my head, Tom.
Yeah, and then obviously we went and signed Martin Glover, I think it is, the new head of recruitment for Leicester. But part of his deal with Southampton is they said, well, you need to honour your contract and you can go to Leicester, but after this transfer window. So in theory, this makes it even worse, because as much as people don't think, what do they do? Well, these people, especially when you've listened to the interviews about this man, he's the kind of man who can pull a rabbit out of a hat, as in he knows so many people in the football world that he could go and get a deal done very quickly if he needs to. He knows where the players are. He knows if something doing them right, well, where's a similar player and where can we get for the same kind of value? This man is very highly rated through the football world by the sounds of it, and Southampton aren't happy that he's leaving them. So it'd be interesting to see, when he does come in January, how it all goes, because for me, this is Leicester's in a very bad position for negotiations, because we haven't got a head of recruitment to go and find these extra little gems if we can't find the ones we need at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're all hunting around for transfer news every day, seeing what comes. As soon as it does, we'll get on with it. Tom, just before we finish today, thanks a lot for joining us today. I don't want to end on a sad bit, but I almost wanted to pay a bit of respect to Mick Bell. I think you knew Mick Bell, didn't you, as well as I did, from around the ground.
A few times.
Yeah, we've come on Leicester Fan TV plenty of times. Very, very sad news that he passed away just over a week ago. Just so sad, Tom, when something like that happens to one of the Blue Army, isn't it?
Another one gone too soon. He wasn't any age. He was one of the most kindest men I've ever met in the football. Followed Leicester home and away over the years, and you always bump into Mick in the grounds. He's always had a chat and a gossip about what's going on, and generally top man. And yeah, thoughts with his family and everything. It's such a sad time for him.
Yeah, indeed. I knew Mick from not only Leicester City, but drinking down at the White Horse in Quorn, and also his lad played football with my lad at Loughborough Dynamo a couple of seasons ago. So really sad, and as Tom says, all the best to to Mick Bell's family and friends. Just so sad when that happens. Tom, thanks so much for joining us. We'll go live as soon as there's any transfer news of any real value, but we just keep fingers crossed, and I'll just keep hitting my head.
Oh, don't, mate. We don't. It will happen. It will happen. They're back now. They've got the pressure on now at the end of the day.
Yeah. Whatever they say, keep the faith, isn't it? So thanks, Tom. We'll see you again soon.
Cheers, all.
I'll let Tom go. Thanks so much to Tom. Thanks as ever for all your views and all your comments. Nick says here, Southampton won't let him go. We wanted him to assist in this window, but again, we can't get the transfer in to get the other transfers in, I think is what Nick's saying. Why wouldn't Ericsson come? Agent Vestergaard and Casper. Yeah, I guess in there. Leicester Fan just says can't see Ericsson joining. I think for me that would only drop into place if Yuri went, I'm sure. Craig says, how close are we to financial fair play limits? I have no idea how they work, Craig. It is like HMRC tax returns and all that. Financial fair play. How do Man City manage to buy all these players? I don't know. Listen, thanks for all your views, all your comments. Don't forget, we will be live this week as soon as there is any breaking transfer news, rumours or gossip. Check out our YouTube channel for pre-recorded content, which has got loads of stuff in it. So go over to there and subscribe. And keep getting your comments in, keep getting your views in, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Cheers.
Thanks for watching Leicester Fan TV. Thanks to our sponsors, ADT Taxis, Everards, Pukka Pies, Pink Car Leasing, Leicester Riders, Hollogram, The Fox's Arms, Peter's Pizzeria, Hope Against Cancer, and Newby Co estate agents. Make sure to follow us on all of our social channels at Leicester Fan TV. Visit our website, leicesterfantv.com.